On my 6th year of serving in a war zone, my request to return to headquarters was denied again. The reason was simple. Hospital policy didn't allow close family members to work in the same department. Since Natalie Hart and I were married, my return would be considered a conflict of interest. I refused to accept that. So, I quietly snuck back to Hartwell to demand an explanation. However, I heard a conversation that made me stop short right outside the administration office. "You've blocked Liam Hayes' transfer for 5 years all because of Noah Bennett," the department director snapped. "Liam ages out next year. This is his last chance to return." Natalie's face remained unreadable. "There's only one transfer slot this year. Noah gets it. Liam can go home and be a stay-at-home husband if he has to. Noah is different. He has ambition." The director slammed a hand on the desk. "And Liam doesn't? His dream was always to work at headquarters." His voice sharpened. "You were the one who had him sent to a war zone in the first place. Now you're blocking his only chance to come back. Noah barely passed his evaluations. He would have been removed years ago if you hadn't kept him under your wing. Do you honestly think you can protect him forever?" For the first time, anger flashed across Natalie's face. "Liam went there as my husband. How much could he have suffered?" Her tone grew icy. "Noah has no connections. If he were sent out there, it would ruin him. I'll take responsibility for Noah's training. I won't let anyone harm him." Outside the door, my eyes burned. I pulled out my phone and called my lawyer. "Draft the divorce papers. As fast as possible. I wasted 5 years all for a woman who had stopped loving me long ago. I no longer wanted to waste any more time on her. I no longer wanted to love her anymore." The moment I pushed the door open, every voice in the room went silent. Natalie froze, then her expression darkened as she looked me over. "Who told you to come here?" Her voice was sharp. "The field hospital is short-staffed. Leaving without approval is desertion." Then, she noticed my reddened eyes. Her gaze shifted away, and her voice lost a little of its sharpness. "What did you hear?" Natalie had always been strict about work, even to the point of cruelty. She made no exceptions, even for her own husband. I still remember when I was first transferred to the war zone 5 years ago. I had nearly died more than once under gunfire and explosions. All I wanted was to see her. After getting through all the hoops, I eventually took an illegal border van back to Hartwell and walked until my shoes were ruined, just to speak to her face to face. I thought she would be happy to see me. Instead, Natalie shoved me away the second she saw me. She had berated me. It was as if she couldn't see my exhausted, filthy state. "Liam, do you have no respect for discipline? If you come back without authorization again, I won't go easy on you just because we're married." I wouldn't have believed that she had blocked my transfer for Noah's sake for 5 whole years if I hadn't overheard this conversation. I wouldn't have believed it for a second that she intended to bring him back and mentor him herself. I placed 2 sets of documents on the desk. When I spoke, I sounded calmer than I expected. "This is my application to return to headquarters." I looked at her. "It's been 5 years. With my qualifications, I should be back by now." Natalie rubbed her temples, exhaustion written across her face. "Stop being impulsive, Liam. The transfer rules are clear. Headquarters can't have direct family members in the same department." Her tone sharpened once more. "This decision came from above. Stop making things difficult for me." Husband and wife. That was what we were supposed to be. She stood there, elegant and untouchable. A department chief whose every word could move hundreds of people. Even the pen on her desk cost more than I made in months. And me? I had gone willingly to a war zone because she begged me to help her. I slogged through sand, mud, blood, and smoke for 5 whole years. My hands bore frostbite scars. My clothes were threadbare and thin, having been washed countless times. The colors had even faded to a pale hue. I couldn't grasp which aspect of myself made her life so hard. "I won't make things difficult for you." I pulled the second document from beneath the transfer application and placed it in front of her. "Let's get divorced." I met her eyes. "The policy can't change, but our relationship can." Natalie went still as she stared at me in disbelief. "Liam, what do you think our marriage is? When did you become this calculating? All this just to get what you want?" I clenched my fists so tightly my nails broke skin. I forced the tears back. "It's been 5 years. I'm about to age out of eligibility for a headquarters transfer." I stared down at her. "Natalie, I can't wait any longer." I couldn't wait for the cutoff to end, as it was my only chance to return. I also couldn't keep waiting for her to love me again. For once, I had to fight for myself. Natalie looked at me for a long moment, something unreadable flickering in her eyes. When she spoke again, her voice softened. "I know these last 5 years have been hard on you, but this year isn't possible. Liam, trust me. Just wait a little longer." She stepped behind me, wrapping her arms around me as though none of this had happened. Then, she reached up to wipe the tears from my face. I stepped away before she could touch me. A bitter laugh slipped from my lips as I stared right at her. "Why isn't it possible? Is it because you already assigned the spot to someone else? Or because of Noah? Whatever patience she had left disappeared. Her face hardened. So that's what this is really about. You're so desperate to come back because you think something is going on between Noah and me? She scoffed. Fine. Let's do it your way. You still won't be transferred back this year, even if we do get a divorce. Do you still want me to sign? I didn't hesitate. Yes. Her jaw clenched. She grabbed a pen and signed the papers with such force that it nearly tore through the documents before throwing the divorce agreement at me. Her voice was as brittle as ice. Don't come crying to me if no one else wants you after you fail to get back into headquarters. During the mandatory 30-day waiting period, I worked myself into the ground. I didn't take any breaks for 15 days straight. My hard work paid off, and I made the shortlist for the headquarters transfer. Everything was going as planned, except for one issue. My old arm injury flared up. The same one I sustained 3 years ago while saving Natalie. A surgery had gone wrong. I stepped in front of Natalie to take the attack for her, resulting in permanent nerve damage. My muscles now spasm constantly, and the war zone lacked the resources to treat them properly. Last year, I found out that a specialist was available to perform surgery. Meanwhile, Noah only got a minor cut on his hand. Natalie pulled the surgeon away to examine him instead. I lost my best chance at treatment. Now that I finally had a shot at coming home, I needed this surgery. Not long after I scheduled it, Natalie showed up at the hospital. She had access to my medical files, so finding out wasn't difficult. She glanced at my wrist and spoke coldly. Noah knows about your surgery. He's worked hard for this transfer. If your arm gets fixed, you'll be competing with him. I frowned. She crossed her arms and continued. Postpone the surgery. Once Noah is transferred back, I'll perform it myself. The pain in my arm suddenly intensified. A cold sensation rushed through me. The day I was stabbed while defending her, Natalie had sobbed so uncontrollably that she could hardly breathe. Why would you do something so stupid? If anyone should have been hurt, it should have been me. She had sobbed and clung to me like I was her everything. If anything happened to you, I'd die with you. And now, she was calmly taking away my chance to have a healthy body again, just because Noah needed the transfer. Whatever warmth I harbored for her in the past died in that moment. Something ugly twisted in my chest. For once, I didn't want her to get what she wanted. I looked at her coldly. This is my body. Only I have a say in this. My surgery has nothing to do with you. The air around her turned glacial. She grabbed my wrist so hard it felt like my bones might crack. Do you have any idea how devastated Noah will be if he doesn't get transferred back? I have plenty of ways to shut this surgery down. She forced me to look at her. My eyes burned with redness, and I laughed bitterly. All Noah has to do is just one tear, and you collapse. So tell me, is he truly your junior colleague or your lover? Rage exploded in her eyes. She lifted her hand. Natalie snapped. Liam, that's enough. A sharp gust swept past my face. I lifted my head and let the tears slide down my cheeks, waiting for the slap. However, the pain never came. Natalie's phone rang. It was Noah's special ringtone. Her eyes shimmered with tenderness that couldn't be concealed, and her voice grew softer. What happened? I told you to stay put. You don't need to cook. A faint, wounded sob came through the speaker. I guess Noah must have tried to cook for her and hurt himself. Natalie immediately began coaxing him in that soft, patient voice. Okay, don't worry. I'll postpone the surgery. Then she added gently, you're the only person I love. There won't be anyone else. Her voice was so tender. To me it was unbearable. I turned away and curled under the blanket, letting my tears soak silently into the pillow. After Natalie hung up, she stayed quiet for a long time. Then, she reached over and tucked the blanket around me. Postpone it. When the time comes, I'll cover the surgery and recovery costs. I know this divorce is only happening because you're upset about not being transferred back. She paused before continuing. Liam, there's nothing between Noah and me. You can choose to believe me, or don't. It's your choice. I kept my eyes closed and said nothing. Only the pillow beneath me grew warmer and wetter. Eventually, her patience ran out. She stood, her tone becoming icy. Fine. Have the surgery. But if you do, you will never return to headquarters. Liam, this is my final compromise. The headquarters was at its busiest point of the year. I knew very well that surgery on my hand could affect my transfer eligibility. Still, I didn't hesitate. I scheduled the operation. When I came out, pain throbbed through my wrist in waves. Today was the day they would announce which doctors had been approved to return to headquarters. I had to be there. When I arrived, applause echoed through the main lobby. Congratulations, Dr. Bennett, on returning to headquarters to train under Chief Hart. Noah stood beneath the stage, giving a thank you speech. Natalie smiled at him, nodding again and again. They looked like a perfect couple as they stood there. My steps faltered. Then I forced my way into the crowd and asked loudly, wasn't the transfer list supposed to be finalized today? I submitted my application. Why was the list announced before I even got back? Noah smiled and pointed at the public notice board. Dr. Hayes, doctors who've recently had major surgery aren't eligible for this transfer. His smile widened. Chief Walsh reported your surgery personally, so I'm the only remaining candidate. The taste of blood filled my mouth. I swallowed hard, fighting back tears as I looked toward Natalie. Her gaze was flat. I told you to postpone the surgery, she said. You didn't listen. The pain in my wrist intensified. My stomach churned. It was as if a thorn was scraping every nerve in my body. I trembled all over as I asked. You told me to postpone it because you wanted me to stay behind? I laughed bitterly. No. You did it because of Noah. You screened the list early. You abused your position to get him transferred back. Natalie's eyes turned cold. Liam, this is a hospital. The transfer list has been finalized. Stop making a scene. Rage surged through my chest. I had given everything just for this chance. So why was he the one who got to come back? I refused to accept it. I rushed onto the stage, opened my phone, and sent the documents I had gathered to the hospital group chat. Then I spoke, each word raw with pain. Noah was assigned to the Warzone unit for 2 years, but he repeatedly abandoned his post and returned to Hartwell without approval. He has no respect for hospital discipline. During his internship at headquarters, he received more than a dozen patient complaints. A year ago, a surgical mistake under his supervision resulted in a patient's death. I glanced at Natalie. And you covered it all up for him. He was never qualified to come back to headquarters. The silence that fell over the hospital lobby was heavy enough to suffocate a man. A sea of medical staff, senior directors, interns, and visiting patients stood frozen, their eyes darting between the public notice board and their ringing phones. Almost simultaneously, hundreds of notification chimes chimed in. Harmony, a digital chorus echoing off the high marble walls. On every screen, the evidence lay bared in stark, unassailable detail. Medical incident logs timestamped from a year prior, patient family complaints that had been quietly suppressed by department seals, attendance records showing Noah Bennett's unauthorized absences, and formal audit filings signed with Natalie Hart's private seal. Noah's face drained of all color, turning a sickening shade of gray. His knees buckled slightly, his hand clutching the edge of the podium. This is a forgery. Dr. Hayes is lying. He's jealous because he lost his transfer spot. A forgery? I looked at him, my voice steady despite the throbbing nerve pain. In my right wrist, the documents carry the official seal of the Hartwell Records Division. The death certificate of Mr. Arthur Vance, the patient who died of an unmonitored arterial tear on your watch, was signed by Chief Hart herself. At 2 a.m. on May 14th. Do you want me to project the security footage of that night onto the main screen? Liam, shut up. Natalie's voice pierced the air, sharp as a cracked whip. She took 3 swift steps forward, her face twisted in a mixture of disbelief and icy rage. She grabbed my arm, her fingers digging so deeply into my unhealed surgical dressing that a sharp, hot burst of pain shot up my shoulder. Are you insane? Do you have any idea what you're doing to this hospital's reputation? To my department? I didn't flinch. I didn't pull away. I simply looked down at her hand on my bandage, then met her eyes with an absolute, barren calm. I am not doing anything to your department, Natalie. I said every word crisp and clear. I am simply bringing the truth to light. The truth you buried under my 6 years of blood and mud in the war zone. You. She stared at me, her chest heaving under her pristine white coat. For the first time in 6 years, I saw a flicker of genuine panic in her eyes, not because she cared about my pain, but because the fortress of authority she had built was cracking beneath her feet. Director Walsh, who had been standing at the back of the auditorium, stepped forward. His face was thunderous, his eyes dark with cold fury. Chief Hart. Dr. Bennett. In my office. Right now, Walsh commanded, his voice echoing across the silent hall. He turned his eyes toward me, his expression softening into something akin to profound regret. Dr. Hayes, report to the medical board unit. I want a full, unedited statement from you regarding every incident listed in that file. Director Walsh. Noah cried out, stumbling down the stage steps toward Natalie, reaching for her sleeve like a frightened child. Chief Hart, you promised me. You said you'd handle everything. You said no one would touch me. Natalie looked at Noah's shaking hands, then at the surrounding crowd of doctors, who were already whispering, recording videos, and pulling away from them both. Her lips pressed into a thin, tight line. She turned back to me, her voice dropping into a desperate, furious whisper. Liam, pull those posts down right now. If you do this, you ruin Noah, you ruin me, and you ruin any chance of us ever fixing our marriage. I let out a quiet, breathless laugh that carried no warmth at all. Natalie, I murmured, leaning in close so only she could hear. Our marriage. Died the day you left me to rot in the mud while you brought your lover flowers. The 30-day waiting period ends in 2 weeks. I suggest you spend that time finding a good lawyer. I turned my back on them both and walked straight toward the administration wing, leaving the two of them standing under the harsh glare of the lobby spotlights. For the next 10 days, Hartwell Hospital was engulfed in an unprecedented storm. The Regional Medical Oversight Committee stepped in, launching an independent audit into the Department of Surgery. What began as an investigation into Noah Bennett's qualifications quickly expanded into a full-scale review of Natalie's tenure as department chief. It turned out that over the past 3 years, Natalie had not only covered up Noah's surgical errors, but she had also diverted departmental research grants, clinical training budgets, and coveted fellowship recommendations directly to him, bypassing dozens of senior surgeons who had given their youth to the institution. While the hospital turned upside down, I stayed in the rehab ward of the Secondary Military Command Hospital 20 miles away. My old mentor from my early residency days, Dr. Marcus Vance, a veteran military surgeon who had recently returned from the front lines, personally oversaw my nerve recovery program. You took a massive risk going through with that procedure while your wrist was still inflamed, Liam, Dr. Vance said, reviewing my post-op electromyogram scans. In his sunlit office. If the nerve sheath had torn further, you would have lost motor function in your fingers permanently. I had to do it, sir, I said quietly, flexing my right hand. The fingers were still stiff, but the involuntary tremors that had plagued me for 3 years were finally gone. I couldn't stay in the dark anymore. Dr. Vance set the scans down, leaning back in his chair with a heavy sigh. I heard about what happened at Hartwell. Natalie Hart was a brilliant surgeon when she started, but power and pride rot a person faster than gangrene. She thought she could play God with people's lives and careers. He pulled a stamped document from his desk drawer and slid it across to me. This is an official requisition from the Central Military Medical Command. Vance said smoothly. We're establishing a specialized trauma and vascular reconstruction center in the capital. I need a chief attending who knows how to operate under fire and manage complex nerve injuries. The salary is triple what Hartwell pays, and the position carries full academic tenure. I looked at the document. My fingers brushed against the heavy, embossed seal at the top. Is this because of my war zone service? I asked. It's because you're the best field surgeon this region has produced in a decade, Vance replied firmly. And unlike the clowns at Hartwell, we don't care about personal politics or backroom favors. We care about results. The job is yours if you want it. A long dormant warmth bloomed in my chest, a feeling I hadn't experienced in 6 long years. For the first time, my work, my sacrifices, and my dedication were being recognized not as a tool for someone else's ambition, but for what they were worth. I accept, sir, I said, my voice steady. Thank you. On the 29th day of the divorce waiting period, I returned to Hartwell to collect my remaining personal belongings from the residential quarters. The hospital grounds were eerily quiet. The loud, vibrant atmosphere that usually defined the main surgical wing was gone, replaced by an anxious, subdued tension. As I walked down the corridor toward my old locker, I saw Noah Bennett sitting on a wooden bench outside the legal affairs office. He looked pitiful. The tailored white coat he used to wear so proudly was gone, replaced by a rumpled, cheap jacket. His hair was messy, and deep dark circles sat under his eyes. When he saw me walking toward him, his eyes flared with a sudden vicious hatred. He scrambled to his feet, blocking my path. Are you satisfied now, Dr. Hayes? Noah sneered, though his voice trembled violently. My medical license has been suspended indefinitely. The board is referring the Vance case to the prosecutor's office for criminal negligence. I'm facing jail time. Is this what you wanted? I stopped, looking at him with a flat, indifferent expression. You killed a patient because you failed to check an arterial line, Noah. Then you let Natalie falsify records to cover your crime. Did you think a medical license was a toy you could keep playing with forever? It was Natalie. Noah suddenly screamed, his face contorting in desperation, pointing a trembling finger toward the chief's office down the hall. She was the one who told me not to worry. She said she'd sign off on the chart. She's the one who kept telling me I was special. She ruined me. I looked at him, feeling nothing but a profound sense of disgust. You were happy enough to use her power when it got you shortcuts, promotions, and my transfer spot, I said coldly. Now that the bill has come due, you throw her away like trash. Before Noah could reply, the door to the chief's office swung open. Natalie stood in the doorway. She looked as if she had aged 10 years in a single month. Her crisp, immaculate uniform was gone, replaced by a plain gray suit. Her eyes were bloodshot, her face pale and gaunt. She had clearly heard every single word Noah had just shouted. Natalie looked at Noah, the man she had protected for 5 years, the man for whom she had sacrificed her integrity, her department, and her husband. Noah flinched under her gaze, stepping back nervously. Chief Hart, I didn't mean. Get out of my sight, Noah, Natalie said. Her voice was barely a whisper yet. It carried an icy, dead weight that made Noah freeze. Get out before I hand the prosecutor the private audio recordings of you begging me to alter those. Tats. Noah's mouth opened and closed like a landed fish. Seeing that she would no longer shield him, he turned and fled down the hallway, his footsteps echoing wildly against the tiles. Natalie stood alone in the hallway. She turned her eyes toward me. For the first time in 6 years, there was no arrogance, no professional coldness, and no dismissal in her gaze. There was only a vast, terrifying void of utter ruin. Liam, she whispered, her voice cracking as she took a slow, hesitant step toward me. I stayed where I was. My hands rested comfortably in my coat pockets, my expression unreadable. The notary is waiting in the administrative conference room, Natalie. Let's finish this. Liam, please, just 5 minutes, she pleaded, reaching out to touch my arm. I stepped back smoothly, avoiding her reach with effortless grace. Her hand hovered in the empty air, trembling slightly before dropping back to her side. Tears welled up in her eyes, spilling over her pale cheeks. I was wrong, she choked out, her chest heaving as she swallowed hard. I was so stupid, Liam. He lied to me. He manipulated me. He made me think he was innocent, that he needed me. He didn't manipulate you, Natalie, I said, my tone completely even. You chose him. You chose him every single day for 5 years. You chose him when you sent me to the front lines. You chose him when you blocked my transfer. You chose him when you took away my surgery. I thought you would always be there, she sobbed, dropping her head into her hands, her shoulders shaking violently. You were my husband. You were the one who took a knife for me. I thought no matter what I did, you would wait for me. I looked at the woman I had loved for a decade. The woman for whom I had nearly given my life. The woman whose memory had kept me alive through mortars, sniper fire, and freezing mud. Looking at her now, weeping in a quiet hallway, I felt no anger. I felt no satisfaction. I only felt a deep, profound sense of relief that it was finally over. I waited for 5 years in a war zone, Natalie, I said softly. I nearly died. 3 times. Every night, while bombs were dropping outside the field tent, I looked at our wedding ring and told myself that my wife was waiting for me at home, working hard for our future. I took a step closer, looking into her tear-streaked face. When I came back and heard you tell Director Walsh that I could stay in the mud forever because Noah had ambition, I realized something. What? She whimpered. The wife I loved died 5 years ago, I said calmly. The woman standing in front of me is just a stranger who shares her name. Natalie felt as if someone had brutally plunged an iron blade into her chest. She stumbled back against the wall, clutching her collar, gasping for air as if she were drowning. Without another word, I walked past her into the administrative office. On the table sat the final divorce decree. I picked up the fountain pen, signed my name with a firm, steady hand, and pushed the document across to the legal officer. 5 minutes later, Natalie walked in, her face entirely hollow. Her fingers shook so violently that it took her 3 attempts to sign her name at the bottom of the page. Click. The notary stamped the red official seal onto the paper. The marriage between Liam Hayes and Natalie Hart is officially dissolved, the officer announced formally. I picked up my copy of the certificate, tucked it into my jacket pocket, and turned to walk out. Liam. Natalie called out from behind me, her voice breaking into a ragged plea. Where are you going? Are you going back to the war zone? I stopped at the doorway, looking back over my shoulder. No, I said, a soft, genuine smile finally touching my lips. I'm going to the Capitol. I have a new department to lead. 6 months later, the National Trauma and Vascular Reconstruction Center in the capital city was bathed in the warm, golden light of early autumn. The state-of-the-art facility was the pride of the region, equipped with advanced robotic surgical suites, top-tier research labs, and an elite team of international specialists. In Operating Room 1, I stood at the head of the surgical table, guiding a team of senior residents through a complex 8-hour microvascular nerve repair on a young firefighter whose arm had been crushed in a structural collapse. Primary nerve sheath reattached. I called out, my voice crisp, calm, and authoritative through my surgical mask. Checking distal pulse. The monitor chimed steadily. Strong pulse restored. Chief Hayes, the chief anesthesiologist announced, smiling behind his mask. Sensory response metrics are optimal. Excellent work, everyone, I said, stepping back from the table as the Residents took over the final skin closure. Close up and move him to ICU 2. The surgical team broke into quiet, respectful applause. I walked out into the scrub room, stripping off my sterile gloves and washing my hands under the warm, running water. My right wrist felt completely strong, smooth and free of pain. Through the floor-to-ceiling glass windows of the corridor, I saw Dr. Marcus Vance walking toward me, holding a cup of hot coffee and a thick medical journal. Another flawless procedure, Chief, Vance smiled, handing me the coffee. The Health Ministry just published the national surgical rankings for this quarter. Our trauma division took first place in the country. It's a team effort, sir. I smiled, taking a sip of the rich, warm brew. By the way, Vance added, his tone taking on a subtle, quiet note, I received an administrative update from the Hartwell region this morning. I paused, looking at him calmly. What happened? The medical board completed its final disciplinary ruling, Vance explained. Noah Bennett was convicted of gross medical negligence and document forgery. He received a 3-year prison sentence and a permanent ban from the medical profession. And Natalie? Stripped of her chief title and her surgical license for 3 years, Vance said, shaking his head. She was demoted to a basic administrative clerk at a small suburban clinic in the outer district. The Hartwell Surgical Department was completely restructured under new leadership. I looked out the window at the bustling city below, where ambulances were arriving under bright blue lights, where young doctors were walking confidently toward their shifts, where life was moving forward in a bright, unstoppable tide. I felt no urge to celebrate her ruin. She had built her own cage, brick by brick, and now she was forced to live inside it. Liam, Vance asked gently, noticing my quietness. Are you all right? I've never been better, Dr. Vance, I replied, genuinely looking at my hands clean, strong, and ready to save lives. My phone buzzed in my coat pocket. It was an alert from the hospital system. An emergency helicopter was landing on the roof in 5 minutes carrying an infant with a severe vascular tear from a highway accident. I set my coffee cup down, tied my surgical cap securely back over my hair, and stepped out of the scrub room into the bright, sunlit hallway. Behind me lay 6 years of darkness, mud, and broken promises. Ahead of me lay a world where I belonged. A world where my hands held value, where my sacrifices meant something, and where I was finally entirely free.